For most of my adult life, I called myself a daughter of the earth. I worshiped the moon, honored the seasons, and found sacredness in nature, symbols, and the feminine divine. My name is Leona Mireille, and for over a decade, I was a Wiccan priestess. I led rituals in the woods under the stars, spoke of goddesses and elemental forces, and guided dozens of women through what we called soul awakenings. I was proud of the role I played. I didn't need religion, I had spirituality, I had freedom. Or at least I thought I did. It was the night of Imbolc, a fire festival honoring the goddess Brigid. We had gathered in a forest clearing in southern France, torches surrounding us in a circle as we chanted and invoked the spirit of rebirth. The flames danced high that night, and something about the air felt electric, heavier than usual. I thought it was just the power of the ritual. I raised my arms to the sky, offering incense and herbs to the goddess, when suddenly my vision blurred. My chest tightened. It wasn't mystical, it was physical, crushing. I fell to my knees, gasping, and the circle of women screamed as I collapsed beside the altar. There was no time to react. No one understood what was happening. I faded fast. The sound of drumming, the crackling fire, the chants, all of it warped into silence. A strange, deep silence. Not peaceful, not terrifying, just nothing. I remember thinking, this can't be happening. I still have work to do. The goddess isn't done with me yet. And then, I felt it. A sudden shift. I was no longer in the forest. I couldn't see my body. I couldn't feel the earth beneath me. I was in a place that didn't feel like a dream. It felt more real than anything I had ever known. But it wasn't light and joy like the afterlife stories I'd heard in the pagan community. It was gray. Still, I was alone. I called out to the goddesses, to the spirits I'd served for years. Nothing answered. Panic settled in. Why wasn't anything responding? Where was the warmth? Where was Brigid, Hecate, Artemis, anyone? That's when I saw her. A woman appeared before me, radiant, dressed in brilliant white, and surrounded by a presence so pure, so piercing, that I couldn't speak. I fell to my knees again, this time from something deeper than pain. Her eyes, oh God, her eyes. They weren't just looking at me, they were looking through me. She didn't announce herself. She didn't need to. I knew who she was. The Virgin Mary. She didn't speak at first. She simply stood there, radiant and still. And I felt something I had never experienced in any ritual or invocation, a crushing weight of love. Not fluffy, sentimental love. This was holy love. Love that exposed everything inside me. I wanted to turn away from her, but I couldn't. Her gaze held me. It was as if my entire soul had been stripped bare. Every lie, every prideful thought, every counterfeit truth I had built my life on laid wide open under the eyes of the Queen of Heaven. And I hated myself for it. I had spent years teaching others that Mary was a myth, that Christianity was the enemy of the divine feminine, that the church was a cage built by men to silence spiritual women like me. I mocked Catholics. I told seekers that Mary was just a distorted echo of older goddesses, nothing more than repackaged mythology, and now, there she stood. She stepped forward slowly and, with every step, I felt like something inside me broke open. The arrogance, the pride, the certainty that I had been right. It shattered in waves. She didn't accuse me. She didn't shame me. But her presence alone convicted me deeper than any words ever could. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer than a whisper, but louder than thunder. You have worshipped creation, but not the Creator. That sentence split me in two. I knew she was right. I had made the earth my altar and forgotten the one who made it. I had honored energy and symbols, but never the author of life. I bowed to statues of feminine gods, never once asking who they really were, and yet, despite it all, she was here, with me, not to destroy me, but to rescue me. I tried to speak, but the weight of guilt crushed my words. All I could say was, "I didn't know." And then she said something that changed me forever. "You searched for the sacred, but the sacred found you." Behind her, I saw a light begin to glow so bright. I had to look away. It was coming from someone, another figure, taller, cloaked in white, but brighter than anything I could comprehend. My heart began to race. I didn't have to ask who it was. My soul knew. Jesus. The one I had always rejected. The one I had told others was just another spiritual archetype. Now he was coming toward me, and I felt unworthy to breathe in his presence. I couldn't look at him. Not at first. The closer Jesus came, the more I wanted to disappear. His presence was nothing like the energies I used to invoke. It wasn't elemental. It wasn't symbolic. It wasn't vague or cosmic. It was personal, alive. It was like standing in front of a fire that didn't burn skin, but burned lies, deception, and pride. His holiness exposed me in a way that was almost unbearable. Not because he was cruel, but because he was true. My legs gave out. I collapsed again, trembling, and for the first time in my life, I truly understood what it meant to fear God, not the fear of punishment, but the fear that comes from standing in the presence of someone infinitely good while knowing how not good you are. I expected him to judge me, to turn his face away. I had blasphemed him for years, taught others to do the same. I led rituals against the church. I offered incense to false gods. I led people away from him. I deserved to be cast out. But he didn't reject me. He knelt beside me, and then he spoke. Leona. Just my name. Nothing more. But in his voice was everything I had ever longed for. My heart broke open right there. I had spent years calling on spirits that never answered, building altars to gods who couldn't see or hear me, whispering prayers to the wind. And now, the one I denied had called me by name. Tears poured down my face. "I'm sorry," I whispered. I didn't know it was you." He looked at Minot with disappointment, but with heartbreak, and yet also with hope. "You were looking for light," he said, "but you followed shadows." I thought about all the rituals, the crystals, the incantations, the symbols I carved into wood and skin. I thought about the women I had led in circles, how we danced and chanted and believed we were awakening to some ancient power. But we weren't. We were circling around emptiness. And yet, here he was, not to condemn me, but to save me. I reached out with shaking hands, not because I was worthy, but because I believed. "Forgive me," I sobbed. "Please, forgive me." And then something happened that I still can't fully describe. He touched my face, and I felt myself come back to life. When Jesus touched my face, it was like every dark thread woven into my soul began to unravel. I felt warmth pure, healing warmth that washed away years of deception and pain. The shame, the guilt, the lies I had believed about myself and God, they all began to melt away. For the first time, I understood what grace truly meant. It wasn't about earning favor or proving worthiness. It was about being loved in spite of everything. The Virgin Mary stood beside him, radiant and calm, her hands folded in gentle prayer. She looked at me, not as an enemy, not as a lost soul, but as a beloved daughter returning home. I understood then why she had Camilo prepare me for this moment, to guide me toward the mercy of her Son. "Come," Mary said softly. "There is a place for you in the church, where healing begins." I wanted to speak, to ask questions, to argue, but my voice was lost in a wave of overwhelming peace. Behind them, a brilliant light grew alight that promised a new beginning, a fresh start beyond any power I had ever known. I wanted to stay, to remain in that holy presence forever. But then I heard a voice not theirs, but mine whispering, "Return, You have a mission." I opened my eyes. The fire ceremony was still burning, but the flames now seemed dull compared to what I had seen. My friends were crying, holding me, telling me I was alive, that I had come back from the dead. But I was different, forever changed. I knew I could no longer live the life I had before. My path was no longer to worship the old gods or the earth alone. I was called to something greater. I was called to Catholicism, and I was terrified. Returning to my old life was harder than I imagined. The pagan community I once led with pride now felt like a distant world, full of expectations I could no longer meet. Some friends were supportive, but many accused me of betrayal. They said I was weak, brainwashed, or worse, an agent of the church, trying to undermine our sacred traditions. I lost followers, respect, and even some close relationships, but no loss compared to what I had gained in my heart. Every day, I wrestled with doubt and fear. Could I really leave behind everything I had believed? Could I embrace a faith I once dismissed as superstition? The memory of that radiant woman, Marianne, the overwhelming presence of Jesus kept calling me. Their love was undeniable, even if my own fear whispered that I was unworthy. I began attending Mass quietly, sitting in the back pew, absorbing the ancient prayers and rituals I had once scorned. The incense, the hymns, the Eucharist, it all touched something deep inside me. I cried in silence as the priest spoke about mercy and redemption, feeling the truth in every word. Slowly, the walls I had built around my heart started to crumble. I confessed my past, the pride, the rebellion, the false gods I had served. And in that confession, I found healing. I realized that the God I had rejected was not distant or cruel, but merciful and close, waiting with open arms. I took the first steps toward baptism. A new journey began, not just a change of religion, but a rebirth. The same Virgin Mary who met me in the afterlife became my guiding mother on earth, interceding for me, leading me closer to her Son. Now, I share my story not as a shameful secret, but as a testimony of grace. For anyone lost in darkness or caught in the snares of false spirituality, there is hope, there is a way back. And it begins with Jesus and his mother Mary. The transformation wasn't instant or easy. Every day I confronted the ghosts of my old life, the chants, the rituals, the friends who could no longer understand me. But the deeper challenge was within, breaking free from the pride and independence that had once defined me. I had always believed that spiritual power came from mastering hidden forces and claiming my own divinity. Now I learned humility, that true power comes from surrendering to God's will. One of the most humbling moments came during a quiet prayer to Mary. I remember kneeling before an image of her, tears streaming and whispering, "Mother, help me follow your Son faithfully." In that moment, I felt her presence closer than ever, not as a distant idol, but as a real mother who cared for my broken heart. Slowly, I began to understand the profound difference between the spirituality I once chased and the faith I now embraced. It's not about tapping into cosmic energy or bending the universe to your will. It's about receiving a love that never fails, a grace that restores, and a community that supports. I started volunteering at my local parish, helping in outreach and learning the traditions of the church. The catechism classes challenged my mind and heart, but I welcomed it. Every lesson was a step away from illusion and a step toward truth. I will never forget the night I received the sacraments of initiation, baptism, confirmation, and the Eucharist. As the priest anointed me, I felt the seal of the Holy Spirit deep within my soul. It was a new birth, a second chance to live in the light. Now, I speak openly about my journey from pagan priestess to Catholic convert because I know there are others like me, searching for truth in the wrong places. My prayer is that my testimony will lead them home, to the one who loves us beyond all measure. One of the most surprising blessings of this journey has been the peace I've found in community. The church is not just a building or a set of rule sets of family. People who love me not because of my past or my status, but because we share the same faith and hope. I've met others who once lived in darkness and have been brought into the light, and their stories inspire me every day. Still, my past sometimes feels like a shadow trying to pull me back. Old doubts, old voices whispering that I was deluded, that I gave up freedom for chains. But every time the doubt creeps in, I remember that night when the Virgin Mary stood before me, radiant and real, and when Jesus called me by name. That moment changed everything. I've begun to speak at gatherings and share my testimony online, hoping to reach those trapped in false spiritualities or searching for meaning. It's humbling, terrifying, and freeing all at once. I don't have all the answers, but I know the one who does. This faith is not just about what I've left behind, but what I've gained: a living relationship with God, a purpose beyond myself, and a hope that death is not the end. I am still learning, still growing, but I no longer walk alone. For anyone listening, if you feel lost, or if your beliefs no longer satisfy your soul, know this: the Virgin Mary and Jesus are real. They are waiting for you with open arms. You only have to say yes. Now, I live each day with a heart full of gratitude. The woman who once ruled the night with spells and chants is gone. In her place stands someone transformed by mercy and truth. I walk the path of faith not because it's easy, but because it's real. I face trials and doubts, but I carry the certainty of Christ's love and the tender guidance of his mother, Mary. Every time I look at the rosary beads in my hand, I remember that sacred encounter, that moment when a pagan priestess met the Queen of Heaven and was invited into a love deeper than anything I had known. My story is not just about me, it's about the power of grace to change even the most unlikely souls. No one is beyond redemption. No darkness is too deep for the light of Christ. If you are searching, struggling, or doubting, please listen to my voice. There is hope, there is love, and there is a place for you in God's family. The Virgin Mary waits for you. Jesus calls you by name, and all you have to do is say yes. Thank you for listening to my journey. May you find the peace and truth I was blessed to receive.